All right, let's talk about one of the hardest things any of us will ever have to do. Forgive. Specifically, forgiving the things that feel absolutely unforgivable. We're going to explore why spiritual practice, which is supposed to bring peace, sometimes just misses the mark, and what its real job might actually be.
So let's just start with a question that I think we've all wrestled with at some point. You look around the world and you see all these deeply religious people, all praying, all fasting, all doing their rituals, and yet so often it seems to fuel more anger, more calls for revenge. What is going on? How can that be?
And it's wild because if you look closely, you start to see this strange pattern where opposing sides become mirror images of each other. They start using the exact same tactics. One side burns a flag, the other burns a book. Both sides dehumanize the other. Both sides shout, "We will not forgive, we will not forget." It just becomes this endless, vicious cycle of anger feeding on itself.
But what if this whole cycle only exists because we've fundamentally misunderstood the goal? I mean, what if the point of all these spiritual traditions isn't just the ritual itself, but what the ritual is meant to build inside of you?
This right here, this single sentence is the key that can unlock this entire puzzle for us. The Prophet Muhammad says that his entire mission, the whole point of it all, was for one reason: to perfect noble morals. It wasn't to enforce rules for the sake of rules, it was to build better human beings from the inside out. So here's the big idea. Every single ritual, whether it's prayer or fasting or anything else, is really just a tool. Think of them like spiritual technologies. Their whole purpose is to work on your inner world, to help you build and strengthen your moral character. Okay, so if the goal is noble morals, what does that actually look like when the rubber meets the road? In real life. And what's the ultimate test of whether you've actually achieved it?
Now, we're not just talking about being polite or having good manners here. This concept, makarim al-akhlaq, goes so much deeper. It describes a state of inner strength, an inner beauty that's so solid, so profound, that no matter what happens to you on the outside, no matter how much injustice you face, it cannot make you bitter on the inside.
And this is the roadmap to get there. The tradition lays out these three core principles. And look at what's number one. The very first step, the foundation for all of it, is to forgive the person who wronged you. That's the starting line for real moral strength.
So if that's the destination, how in the world do you build up the strength for something that hard? Well, this is where a practice like prayer gets a complete makeover. Let's just reframe this for a second. We usually think of prayer as, our wish list, asking for stuff, asking for our enemies to be punished. But what if prayer's main job isn't to change God's mind about them, but to change our heart about them?
So prayer becomes a kind of spiritual workout. It's designed to build that inner muscle, that spiritual toughness that lets you take a hit, a real injustice, and not lash out. It's what allows you to produce forgiveness from a place of genuine strength, not weakness.
Now I know what you might be thinking. This sounds beautiful, a nice theory, but is it actually possible for a human being to do this? Let's look at a few people from history who actually live this out, under the most extreme circumstances you can imagine.
Let's start with Nelson Mandela. I mean, think about it. 27 years. 27 years of his life stolen, spent in a brutal prison, all for fighting a racist system. He had every right to come out of there filled with rage and a thirst for revenge. But what did he do? When he became president, he found out one of his old jailers was there at an event, and instead of ignoring him or having him removed, Mandela stood up, he honored the man, and he invited him to a state dinner. He was showing the entire world, and maybe himself, that he was truly free, not just from a physical prison, but from the prison of bitterness.
Okay, now let's take it another step up with Mahatma Gandhi. He was once asked this chilling, hypothetical question. What would you do to the man who is about to assassinate you?
And his answer is it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. He said, I would forgive him after he fired the shot, but before the bullet reached my body. What he's describing is a state of being where forgiveness isn't even a choice you have to make. It's just your default setting. It's instantaneous.
And for our last example, this one is maybe the most profound of all. Imam Hussein, the Prophet's grandson, was surrounded and brutally killed with his family. And in his final moments, his entire perspective was just breathtaking. He didn't see the people attacking him as enemies he needed to defeat.
He saw them as sick people who needed to be cured. His focus, even as they were killing him, was on their salvation, on saving them from the sickness of their own cruelty. He completely flipped the script from victim and aggressor to healer and patient.
This brings us to our final idea. And honestly, it's the most radical, paradigm-shifting takeaway in this entire way of thinking. It completely changes how we're supposed to look at the people who hurt us.
And I really want you to just sit with this question for a second, because it's uncomfortable, it's provocative. What if the person who did you wrong, who caused you all that pain, what if, in some bizarre cosmic way, they were a gift?
Here's a metaphor to help explain it. Think about a fruit tree. What does it get fed? Manure, waste, filth, the absolute worst stuff. But what does the tree do? It has this incredible internal power to take all that ugly, smelly waste and transform it into sweet, beautiful, fragrant fruit. That person who wronged you, they gave you the manure for your spiritual growth. They handed you the raw material, the pain, the injustice, the ugliness, that gives you the chance to transform it into something beautiful inside of yourself, into strength, into compassion, into forgiveness. They become a necessary rung on the ladder of your own spiritual climb.
And so we land on this final, really challenging thought. The person who tried to tear you down, they actually became a ladder for you to ascend. And if that's true, then the only logical response isn't anger. It's a strange kind of gratitude. The final instruction becomes, pray for your ladder. And that is a thought worth sitting with for a long, long time.